The dim glow of the gas station's fluorescent lights flickered like dying stars against the pitch-black canvas of a midnight sky, casting long, menacing shadows across the cracked pavement where Elena stood frozen, her hands trembling as she clutched the fuel nozzle. Her 5-year-old son, Tommy, huddled in the back seat of their battered old sedan, his wide eyes peering through the window at the three burly men who had encircled her like predators closing in on wounded prey. Their laughter echoed harshly in the empty lot, laced with cruel taunts about her worn-out clothes and the way she fumbled with her wallet, scraping together the last few dollars for gas to make it home after a grueling double shift at the diner. Elena's heart pounded in her chest, a frantic drumbeat of fear and desperation, as one of them stepped closer, his breath reeking of cheap beer and malice, demanding she hand over what little she had left, his voice a low growl that promised violence if she resisted. In that moment, the world narrowed to the cold metal of the pump in her grip and the silent plea in her mind for someone, anyone, to intervene before the night shattered her fragile hold on survival. If this story resonates with you and you believe in the power of kindness and second chances, please hit that like button, drop a comment below sharing your thoughts, share this video with someone who needs a reminder of humanity's goodness, and subscribe to Gentle Hearts for more tales that touch the soul. Elena's life had been a relentless storm ever since her husband, Mark, passed away 2 years earlier in a senseless car accident that left her widowed at 28, burdened with a mountain of medical bills and the sole responsibility of raising Tommy in a world that seemed indifferent to their plight. She remembered the day of the funeral as if it were etched in glass, the rain pouring down like tears from the heavens, mingling with her own as she stood graveside, Tommy clinging to her leg, too young to grasp the permanence of loss but old enough to feel the void it created. In the months that followed, Elena had clawed her way through grief, taking on menial jobs that barely covered rent for their tiny apartment on the outskirts of town, where the walls were thin and the neighbors' arguments bled through like unwelcome ghosts. Mornings began before dawn, packing Tommy's lunch with whatever scraps she could afford, peanut butter sandwiches on day-old bread, before dropping him at the subsidized daycare that smelled of crayons and quiet desperation. Evenings stretched into exhaustion, her feet aching from hours on concrete floors, serving coffee to strangers who rarely looked her in the eye, all while suppressing the ache in her chest that whispered doubts about her ability to provide the stable life Tommy deserved. Friends had drifted away, unable to bridge the chasm of her sorrow, and family was a distant memory, scattered across states she couldn't afford to visit. Yet, through it all, Elena held onto a flicker of hope, teaching Tommy small lessons in resilience, like how to plant seeds in cracked pots on their windowsill, watching green shoots defy the odds, a metaphor for the strength she prayed they both possessed. That fateful night at the gas station, the air thick with the scent of gasoline and impending rain, Elena's struggles converged into a nightmare she couldn't escape. She had worked overtime, scraping tips into her purse, just enough to fill the tank and buy groceries for the week, but as she pumped the fuel, the three men emerged from the shadows of a nearby pickup truck, their leather jackets emblazoned with crude patches, eyes glazed with entitlement and boredom. They started with catcalls, mocking her faded jeans and the way her hair fell limply from a hasty ponytail, but it escalated quickly when one noticed her counting coins at the pump. "Look at this one, boys, thinks she can just scrape by without sharing," the leader sneered, his voice carrying across the empty lot like a whip crack, drawing the others into a circle that blocked her path to the car. Elena's mind raced, flashing to Tommy's innocent face in the backseat, his toy truck clutched tightly as if it could shield him from the ugliness unfolding outside. She tried to ignore them, focusing on the digital display ticking up the gallons, but her hands shook so violently that fuel splashed onto her shoes, the sharp smell burning her nostrils. One thug reached out, grabbing her arm roughly, demanding her wallet, his grip like a vice that sent jolts of pain up her limb, while the others laughed, feeding off her terror like vampires in the night. In her periphery, she saw Tommy pressing his palms against the window, his lips forming silent words of fear, and Elena's heart fractured further, a mother's instinct screaming to protect him at any cost, even as despair whispered that she was utterly alone in this cruel tableau. As the harassment intensified, with the men shoving her against the car door and rifling through her purse, spilling receipts and crumpled bills onto the oil-stained ground, the rumble of engines shattered the tension like thunder rolling in from the horizon. Headlights pierced the darkness, illuminating the scene in stark relief as a group of bikers, leather-clad figures on gleaming motorcycles, pulled into the station, their machines growling with restrained power. Elena's breath caught in her throat, fearing this was the end, that more trouble had arrived to compound her nightmare, but as the bikers dismounted, their boots thudding heavily on the pavement, something shifted in the air. The leader of the bikers, a towering man with a salt and pepper beard and eyes that held the weight of lived hardships, stepped forward, his presence commanding silence from the thugs who suddenly seemed smaller, their bravado deflating like punctured tires. The other bikers fanned out, surrounding the harassers in a loose circle, not with aggression but with a quiet, unyielding solidarity that spoke volumes without a single threat uttered. Elena watched, her body still trembling, as the bearded man approached her gently, his voice low and steady, though she couldn't hear the words over the pounding in her ears, yet his actions told the story, picking up her scattered belongings and handing them back with a nod that conveyed empathy born from his own scars. The bikers' intervention unfolded like a slow dawning light, revealing layers of humanity beneath their rugged exteriors. The bearded leader, whose name Elena would later learn was Jax, had once been on the wrong side of choices, a former convict who turned his life around through a veterans support group after serving in wars that left invisible wounds. His companions were a motley crew of reformed souls, ex-addicts, survivors of abuse, men who rode not for thrills but for purpose, patrolling late-night roads to offer aid where the system failed. As they encircled the thugs, Jax spoke calmly, his words diffusing the volatility, reminding the aggressors of the consequences of their actions without resorting to fists, a testament to the second chances he himself had embraced. The thugs, outmatched and outnumbered, slunk away into the night, their truck peeling out with a squeal of tires, leaving behind an eerie quiet broken only by the hum of the gas pump finally clicking off. Elena collapsed against her car, sobs racking her frame as the adrenaline ebbed, and Jax knelt beside her, offering a handkerchief from his pocket, his rough hands gentle as he assured her she wasn't alone anymore. Tommy, sensing the shift, cracked open the door, his small voice piercing the silence, and one of the bikers, a burly man with tattoos snaking up his arms, knelt down to his level, pulling a candy bar from his saddlebag, a simple act that bridged the gap between stranger and savior. In the hours that followed, as the bikers escorted Elena and Tommy home under the watchful eye of the moon, a bond formed in the quiet spaces between shared stories whispered over coffee at her kitchen table. Jax revealed his own losses, a wife taken by illness, a son estranged by his past mistakes, and how riding with his group had become a lifeline, a way to pay forward the kindness that pulled him from the brink. Elena opened up about her isolation, the endless cycle of bills and broken dreams, and for the first time in years, she felt seen, not as a victim but as a warrior enduring battles unseen. The bikers didn't just vanish into the dawn, they returned in the days ahead, helping with car repairs, organizing a community fundraiser at their clubhouse to ease her financial burdens, and even mentoring Tommy with stories of resilience that planted seeds of hope in his young heart. Elena's world, once a monochrome of struggle, began to bloom with color. Neighbors who had ignored her now waved hello, inspired by the bikers' involvement, and she found strength to pursue a better job, her confidence bolstered by the unexpected family she had gained. The harassment at the gas station, once a symbol of her vulnerability, transformed into a turning point, a reminder that even in the darkest corners, guardians could emerge from the unlikeliest places, weaving threads of compassion into the fabric of broken lives. As the months turned into a year, Elena stood taller, her laughter echoing in the park where Tommy played with new friends, the bikers, roars becoming a familiar soundtrack to barbecues and birthdays. Jax became a steadfast figure in their lives, his presence a quiet anchor that healed old wounds and fostered new beginnings, proving that redemption wasn't just for the fallen but for those who extended a hand to lift them up. The story of that night spread through the town like wildfire, inspiring acts of kindness that rippled outward, a chain reaction of humanity reclaiming its light from the shadows. Elena often reflected on how close she had come to breaking, only to be surrounded not by threats, but by protectors who reminded her that vulnerability could summon strength, and isolation could birth community. In the end, it wasn't the thugs' malice that defined her journey, but the bikers' compassion, a heart-touching testament to the enduring power of empathy in a world too often divided. If this tale of unexpected heroes and heartfelt redemption has touched your heart, stirred emotions within you, or reminded you of the beauty in human connections, please like this video, share it with loved ones, and subscribe to stay inspired. Your engagement means the world and keeps these stories alive. Before we wrap up, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What's one act of kindness you've experienced or given that changed everything? Share your story below.